Food is more than just what's on our plate. It's the places where it's grown, it's the people who grow it, and so much more. Join me, Janice Person, your host, on Grounded by the Farm every other week as we talk about the foods we love. Just a quick intro. Want to make sure you know this was recorded in the fall, and since then the weather has certainly changed in Virginia. Also want to let you know we have 2 videos going with this episode on our website. One talking about the Harvest Festival that she mentions briefly in the podcast episode, and the other really showing us around the chicken farm itself. Here we go. I have crossed into the Shenandoah Valley, and it is gorgeous. Rolling hills, the Appalachians, beautiful stretches of green fields, cattle kind of dotting the countryside, and my friend Lauren Arbogast smack up in the middle of it.
Right here, all up in the middle of it.
And so this one, we're going to be talking to Lauren. She and her family have a diversified operation, and today they had a harvest festival, which was a lot of fun. So we're going to have some photos and video of that. That's one of those pieces that she's doing to kind of build her local community and give back and really connect with people. But what we wanted to talk about today is what I like on my biscuits for breakfast. Chicken. I'm a big chicken biscuit girl, so I love them. It's a Southern thing. I found out when I moved to the Midwest, people do not eat chicken on a biscuit for breakfast.
That's unfortunate.
It is. Mm-hmm. So tell me, you guys have chicken barns?
Mm-hmm. Chicken houses,
we
call them. Yeah.
All right. And what would that look like to somebody who hasn't seen them before? Or maybe they've seen them and they just didn't know what it was.
Yeah. It's just a large structure. Ours are 50 by 500. So you think about on the outside, it looks very much like metal siding, metal roof, low to the ground type barn. You might just even drive past and not think that there's anything in or around it, maybe machinery of some sort. But it is that houses chickens. Each of our house holds about 30,000 chickens.
That's a lot of birds.
It is a lot of birds. Yeah, we raise them. We raise what they call small broiler birds. So we do raise the birds for meat. There's no egg production involved where we are. And those birds stay with us for a little bit over a month when they're about 4 pounds, and then they are taken to market.
Okay, so you said small broiler birds.
Mm-hmm.
Are those the ones that would be used for like rotisseries and things, or are those what are those used for versus other kinds of broilers?
Yeah, so a small broiler bird, small meat bird in essence, is a lot of your fast food type meals or entrees. So whether it be your chicken and biscuits, if you get a chicken biscuit from a fast food place, or your nuggets, or something else like that, but you're looking at a smaller portion bird. They don't want larger wings, larger breasts, they want a smaller, more compact piece.
Okay, so people that are going to be looking for like hot wing suppliers, would they go for smaller ones?
Typically, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And then companies that are going to do like big breast entrees go for larger broilers. Is that what I'm thinking?
That's correct. So there's actually 3 different sizes of broilers. So there's a 4-pound broiler, a 7-pound broiler, and a 9-pound broiler. So a lot of times when people say, "Oh, I saw the chicken breasts in the grocery store. They're huge." What did they put into them? They didn't put anything into them. It's in relation to the size of the chicken. So a bigger bird, a bigger chicken breast.
So would that be different breeds of birds, just like there are different breeds of dogs that are big, medium, and small?
Yes.
Would part of that be that, and then part of it would be how you're feeding, housing, how long you grow them out, all those things play into it?
All of those variables play into it. So just like when you think of the difference between beef cattle and dairy cattle, so beef cattle are genetically built muscles, meat, a heavier body load. Dairy cattle are built for milk production. And so they're framier and they are not as muscular. And so when you look at chickens, yes, there's a variety of different breeds, but also you have your egg-laying chickens are a different frame, a different build than your meat chickens, which are your broiler chickens. And so there's different breeds. And even within the meat chickens and within the egg-laying chickens, there's different breeds within that specific to what you want and specific to what the goal of your farm or operation is.
And backyard chickens. So I think that's an area that a lot of us have seen people with. And I've got some footage, I think, from a pecan farm I was on, and Natasha Nichols has some in her urban garden, her urban farm. A lot of times those chickens look really different. Like there'll be some black and white speckled, and there'll be some bright red. Yeah. Your chickens all look alike?
They do. So they're all the same breed. So you think about putting like the same breed of dog together or something. They are the same breed. There's lots of neat things that goes on with science and genetics and things. And, you can just look at like the American Kennel Club dog show to see that like through the years and through breeding and through different things, you can see just differences and how even within the species, the dog species, there's so many different things, and I hate to keep comparing it to dogs, but when you think of any animal, there's always a variety within that species. It may be big or small, but there's always a variety. And so, yes, we do grow one specific breed or raise one specific breed, but there are a lot of different breeds of chickens out there. The breed that we grow or raise is one that it gains muscle mass. Well, the muscle is the meat, and so sometimes people shy away from the realities of, growing an animal for meat, but that is the reality. If you choose to eat meat, that's how it's raised. So
right. Usually, people that may have exposure to chickens, it's because of backyard chickens, because you limit how many people can come on a chicken farm, right?
Yes. Biosecurity, big fancy word, just to mean that we're trying to keep the animals safe, and we're trying to keep everybody safe and disease free.
Right. And we don't always know what people may bring in that may bother chickens. Just like different kinds of things that wouldn't bother me here in Mexico. I could drink the water and really have problems, but here I drink the water and I'm fine. So it may be the same thing. You're exposing the chickens to something just as bad as you might be exposed to something in the chicken barns, right?
Yeah.
So very few people have gotten to see that. So the chicken that you're talking about is going into a market, and it's bred to be tender and moist and
tender, juicy, meaty, like a thick, meaty cut for chicken. Yeah, and it's going into the grocery market. There's a variety of ways to raise a chicken,
Yep.
I'd hate to say there's many ways to skin a cat, but the phrase, there's a variety of ways to raise a chicken. There are different companies and different ways from, like you mentioned, from backyard chickens to raising them organically large scale, to raising them what we would call traditionally large scale, to somewhere in the middle with, pulling the coops on wheels around the field and like pasture range chickens. So there's a lot of different ways for a similar end product. Without getting too in depth, there's a supply and demand. There's lots of different pieces to the puzzle of feeding a community and a society and a world, in essence. But at the same time, like for us, and I'm going to kind of nosedive here, feel free to edit if you want to, but we raise chickens on a larger scale for meat. We raise beef on a larger scale for meat. And yet at the same time, we also are investing back into our community and just started a business where we're selling our beef directly to the consumer right here in our community. And so for us, it's about knowing that there's lots of different ways to do things. Nothing is absolutely perfect. No way is absolutely 110% perfect. But it takes diversified systems and diversified ways of thinking and operating to ultimately feed your neighbors.
Right. So the chickens are all raised for the system. It's kind of a closed system to go straight into the market.
Correct.
And you raise them from babies?
We do. So we get them the day they're hatched. So day one, And the closed system that you mentioned. So we have here, right here in our local area, we have a hatchery. Let me go back a step, actually. So we have what's called the breeder broilers. So let me break that down. This is all stuff I've learned over the past 15 years marrying into a farm family. There are chicken houses around here that look like egg producing houses, which they are. They have the egg layers in there, but they also have roosters in them. So they are fertilized eggs. Those eggs are collected not to be eaten, not to go to grocery store shelves, but to go into a hatchery. The hatchery,
like incubator kind of city.
Yes, incubator city would be a great way to think about it. It's awesome if you ever get a chance to look inside a hatchery. Just the technology, the computers, the manpower, it's amazing. The logistics in getting that is phenomenal. Anyhow, so our chicks here literally are bred right here in our area. The eggs are incubated in the hatchery. They hatch at the hatchery, and day one, that first day they're born, they bring them to us. We raise them for 32 to 35 days, and then they are processed right here in the Shenandoah Valley. So it's a closed system in that it's all literally right here within like 30 miles, a 30-mile radius.
Yeah.
But from there, it's trucked outward to grocery stores across the U.S.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, to have it all sort of in a local chain. And then it makes sense that you're in some parts of the country and you see more chicken houses and more chicken barns. Groupings, sort of. Like, it's not like all across the state, but it'll be in different pockets of an area. What makes one area better for chicken production than another? Is there anything in the geography or?
Yeah, there's a lot of things that go into play, I would say, with that. Certainly land. So a very mountainous area, if you don't have the flat space to build a pad to build a chicken house, that can be detrimental. Water. So there has to be an adequate supply of water because chickens as an animal drink a lot of water. Also, you want to look at feed supply. So the feed primarily being corn, soy, or soybean based, whatever the meal is. If you're in a state that doesn't grow that, so you're trucking it in to make the feed, that's cost prohibitive. And so really you'll see a lot of the poultry clustered around areas where there is adequate corn or soybean food supply. Corn,
soybeans, water, all big. Okay.
Yeah, and flat-ish land.
Yeah, so it makes sense that the southeastern parts of the country do it more than like Southwest where it's really dry.
Yes. Yeah. Water would be an issue. Yeah.
Okay. That all helps me out. So what's the toughest part about chickens? So I'm just thinking you've got a lot of chickens in a house. So if something goes wrong in that house, it gets big fast. So
it can get big fast. Yes.
I assume there's a lot of effort made to keep people out and keep the birds safe and all the supplies quality checked and all that kind of stuff. But do you actually look at the chickens?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's funny because when I talk about chicken houses, I talk about the technology a lot that's in there. I talk about the computer systems that help us. I talk about how the chicken houses have air conditioning. And so if my husband complains that, I don't turn on the air conditioning, I tell him to go to the chicken house. They have heat, air conditioning. They have a 24-hour supply of food and water. And the systems help us monitor that, but that does not take us out of the equation at all. Ourselves or the people that work here closely with us are in the chicken houses at least 3 times a day. And when you're walking through the chicken houses, you are all the time checking for the health of the birds, number one. So you're looking to see, are they headed to feed and water? Are they getting up? Are they walking around? Are they, able-bodied? Those are things that you look for all the time. But then you're also checking, is there an equipment malfunction? Is there a feed spill that the computer didn't catch? So just because we farm with technology does not take the human out of farming at all. It helps, sure, but there's absolutely no way that we could, take us completely out. That wouldn't be farm. That'd take the farmer out of farming.
So what all do you do by computer?
Yeah.
I assume like feed mixtures, you know how much goes to different.
Yep. So we can tell exactly how much feed comes in, how much they're eating, how many gallons of water they're drinking per day, per hour. We can see through that. We also can regulate and look at the different heat zones, so we can tell exactly the temperature throughout. One of the neat things about the chicken houses is it's also hooked up to a security system. So think like, you know how you'd have hawk security for your home or something. It's also on each of our chicken houses. And so if we set a temperature range, say the chickens come in as babies, and we want the temperature throughout the entire house to be between 89.1 degrees and 90.1 degrees. The minute the sensors sense in the houses that it's gone outside of that range, it kicks the security system to call us.
Wow.
So if we're not in there at that moment checking and notice that the sensors are off or something is going wrong, the system calls us, which is really neat. Also, if we lose power, we have backup generators on each of those that kick in 30 seconds. So there's a lot of different pieces of that puzzle.
That's kind of wild because, when my power goes out, I just sit there and wait for the electric company, phone calls and
find
on
the
cell
light,
phone.
the match and the candle.
Exactly.
Sit there.
Exactly. So just like about the birds. So I went in one of the barns earlier.
Yes.
And as we walked in, the birds all like went, oh, wait a minute. Maybe we don't want to be next to her. And they ran away. And then they came back slowly. Like, oh, maybe she's okay.
Yeah.
Do they kind of choose like an area of the barn that's kind of home, or do they move all around?
They will wander. If you were to put a piece of tape on the back of one of them, or a dot of some sort.
Next time a GoPro
on the back of a chicken, I think it'd be the same weight. I don't know how that would work. But you would watch it would wander the entire house. It's funny to just watch how they move. So,
yeah.
Yeah,
they just wander around because it is very open. There's not like stalls and
nope.
They're not.
It is a wide open building. The feed lines run the entire length of the building, and there's 3 feed lines that go the entire length, and then there's 6 water lines that run the entire length of the building. So they walk under the feed lines and the water lines and just kind of weave their way around.
So when you think about the fact that you've got alarms going off, would they go off if like the water wasn't working in this section of the barn?
Yep.
Or if they're not getting food in this section?
Yes. That, we'll get a call from the alarm company 2 a.m. and they'll say house 5 water. And that's all they know. And it's really funny because the company's out of California. And so they're calling us on the East Coast and they're saying, house 5 water on Lacey Spring Road. And we're like, yeah, okay. And so that means for us, a drive to the house to find out what's going wrong and to fix the problem. But when we think about if we didn't have those checks, those stopgaps, that could be extremely detrimental by the time we got in there the next morning at 7 a.m.
If they're that thirsty of an animal.
They drink a lot of water. So, yeah.
So you got to have it out there all the time.
And temperature needs to be right, for them to grow and to develop. They need to have their feed, obviously. So, yeah. Yep.
What are the other things about the chickens in the barns? Like, do they ever fly?
They will. So chickens are a funny animal. I mean, I'll just say.
I mean, some roosters or chickens or something, they like sort of fly-ish.
They do. So since we raise small birds, they are a younger sort. They have not really figured out at that point whether they're male or female. And so the females are not laying eggs. They're nowhere close to like egg laying age. And they will flutter around. They'll jump on top of the feed lines. It's funny.
So they're co-ed
It's a co-ed chicken house. I'm going to use that from now on. We run co-ed chicken houses.
Do they make much noise?
They are. They're pretty noisy, especially when they're babies and we get them that first week. There's a lot of peeping and you can actually hear it from the outside.
Yeah.
When you go past, but a lot of it too is because we have the windows open, the vents open. And so it's, open with the airflow and everything. But when they get older, they'll start to, test their wings and they'll jump on top of the feed lines or the water lines and things. And chickens are really funny. If you just walk in and you just sit down, you crouch down so that they'll pretty soon they'll just cock their head sideways at you and, walk towards you and then start pecking a ring or your shoelace or something. It's really funny. But then they'll also like turn to their chicken neighbor and start a little squabble, like the pecking orders, it came from chickens, that phrase, because they are very peculiar about like,
I've seen it in
I'm in this and yeah.
Yeah, I've seen it in egg laying facilities. So where I went to an egg farm,
it's
because then the chickens, you're using the same hens for a longer period of time.
Yes.
And so the pecking order in the cage-free section was really something.
It's real. I mean, and you see that in backyard chickens.
Yeah.
Somebody is top dog and somebody is not top dog. So
yeah. Something really important. Do you eat much chicken?
We do. It's for dinner tonight, actually. We eat a variety of proteins here. We do eat chicken. So before chickens, my husband and his family raised turkeys. And then prior to that, it was actually range turkeys. They're not very fond of turkey, I will say, but chicken is okay. And so I haven't figured out, like, is it because they got to year X on turkeys and then it was, over, or because, and I'm joking. I'm sorry. This is a podcast and you can't see me being sarcastic and joking.
We've done an interview on turkeys and talked to a farmer about them. And it is pretty interesting because we kept asking him questions about chickens. And he's like, I really don't know. I've never been around chickens.
Yeah.
So
they're
I
different.
should have probably listened to that episode to really come in. But I mean, part of it for me is just kind of thinking about, the way chickens behave is, the way they want to eat their food. They typically like peck at it.
Yeah.
And so the feeders are set up to do that kind of supply.
Yes. Yep. As they peck at it, more comes down out of the top. So it's, yes. And when they're babies, when they're first out, we have they are like half the size of this table. So let's just say at least 2 by 3, if not 3 by 4, large trays all throughout the house, extra, so that they can get to feed faster when they're little babies.
Okay.
They kind of train to the feed lines, if you will.
Yeah.
So.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So what are your favorite ways to make chicken?
Oh, this is like a question from left field. I love chicken in all ways. I love it in a taco or a good chicken stir fry. One of my favorite ways to make it is similar to actually what we're having for dinner tonight. It's to start it on the stove and then finish it up in the cast iron skillet in the oven. Especially like with a good roux on it. So, flour and butter and milk and all those good Southern things. And then to put that on top of a carbohydrate, of course, because,
everybody loves a good starch.
Most people do. Not everybody, but most people do. Yes. So yeah, I like chicken a variety of ways, but I would say like in a cast iron skillet, it's probably one of my favorites.
Yeah, cast iron does some amazing things.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, and amen.
What about the environmental side?
Yeah.
The smell?
The smell. So you were in there today. You noticed it's not maybe a smell that you smell out of your favorite rose or flower. It is an animal smell. I
have asthma and allergies, and I didn't feel like I couldn't breathe, which I've been in some places where smells have been a little overpowering.
That's good. Whew, we're past that test. Okay. Environmental wise, so when we're talking about the litter, and when I say litter, that is the manure from the chickens mixed with the bedding. So for bedding, we use a mix of shavings, wood shavings, as well as peanut hulls. So a byproduct from another agriculture industry is actually reused in ours. So when the birds leave for harvest, we have usually a 2 to 3 week window before we get our next group of birds in. And during that time, we do several different things with the houses. So number one, we take off the top crust of the litter. And that is an excellent fertilizer that we use, but we use it on pastures and also crop fields, but we use it in correlation with the DEQ for Virginia. So that's Department of Environmental Quality, as well as USDA NRCS. So we work very closely with programs to say, like,
looking
take
at
soil tests and say, this field needs this, it's lacking in this, or this field has too much of this, we need to not, you know. So the litter is a very important fertilizer on our farm and on a lot of farms around. But then also when we clean out houses, once we take that top crust off, we windrow them. So we actually put the litter into a compost. When we go through 2 heats. So we'll put it up in a big long pile. It goes through a heat, and then we actually turn it. And that gets rid of any microbes, bacteria there in the house. We spread it back out, and then we top dress it again. So there's been a lot of research and things done with that. Like, what's best to clean completely out? What's best to windrow? Is it best just to take the top crust off?
It's amazing that there are people who get PhDs in studying this stuff to me. I mean, blown away by it.
Same, but yes. And they're really excited, and I'm glad they're excited about studying that, so I can reap the benefits of this is what's best, what we know is best at this time.
And then the other thing I noticed when we looked at your barns is you guys have solar panels. So you're looking at ways to do energy more efficiently and things along that line too.
Yeah, that was a COVID project for us. Something good came out of COVID. Am I allowed to say that? We got all of our chicken houses have solar panels on them. And so they are fully powered by the sun, which is really cool when you think about it. And, you know, we give back to the grid. Yeah. So the extra energy goes back on the grid. But that was something for us. Again, we're a multi-generational farm. So there's actually 3 generations that you could say are active in farming here, from my husband's father to my husband and his brother, and then the next generation coming up that are all in like the middle school-ish years. But they're very active and passionate about farming. But when we're looking at what is best for the farm, what's best for the land and the animals that we steward, solar panels fit into that for us, because in reality, when we think about stewardship and we think about farming in general and agriculture, we look to the future. Like, it might be just kind of flippant to say, but you can't be a farmer and not look to the future, because you plant a crop and you look to the harvest. You get a chicken on day 1 and you look to what it's going to grow into.
There's always a build.
There's always a build. And for us, we're building towards the next generation, and we want to leave it better than we found it. And so for us, that's a driver. That's also a driver of a lot of conversations around the farm, because anytime you work with multiple people or multiple generations, there's different perspectives and different feelings and just everything when you're coming together to say what's best. Well, what's best for us and our family might not be best for the farm that's a mile down the road. And so I just think as we think about like agriculture and farming, there's a lot of different ways to do things. And it's really neat to just see how families have said, this is what's best for us at this time in relation to just, you know, what all else is going on with them. Yeah. Sorry, I kind of dived off from chickens there into stewardship and family.
Well, we're gonna include some pictures of 5A meats, which is your children and your nieces and nephews, right?
Yes.
So we'll put some pictures up on that kind of stuff, and some video from today, the hayride and stuff with some of that next generation driving the tractor and all. So, but I really appreciate it. If people wanted to get in touch, what's the best way to find you online? Or
absolutely. So social media, Instagram is my fave. That's probably the best way to find me, but it's just at Lauren.Arbogast, LAUREN.ARBOGAST. So you can find me on Instagram there. You can find us 5A Meats, like it said.
It's the numeral 5.
Number 5A Meats. And then, I'm on Facebook as well. So you can shoot me a message there.
Great.
Yep.
Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.
Really appreciate your spending your time with us today and just coming back and checking out Grounded by the Farm in the future. If you want to get caught up, there's some things on the website, groundedbythefarm.com, We're on social media, especially Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We have a YouTube channel, and this episode with Lauren granted us 2 new videos. So please go ahead and check us out on the other platforms and tell your friends who also love food to come and check us out. We'd love to have more among our ranks. Thank you and have a great day.